some confusion. But of course, in our own societies, we also had days, and they were being named differently. No, Sebaseka is June. It's a month, but even days. Monday, I think, is Kazova. Monday is Kazova. Tuesday is Nagaonye. No, Nagaonye Thursday. Wednesday is Mukasa. Saturday is Wamunyi. That is amongst the Baganda culture. But each and every society at least had specific names there.
You know, people are not even aware about that.
They don't have days.
That the days have local names in Uganda and different tribes.
Yeah, and the real calendar that we are following back in the days, it was called the Yamatonga calendar. It is named after the Kenyans because the Kenyans were in a position to first of all come up with the stars. Because how we move by the days, it's by the position of the moon and the sun. And
you know, Doctor, is it Ethiopia, Somalia? They have a different calendar that they follow.
Yeah, so Ethiopia, they have.
We are in 2026. For them, they will say they are in 2015.
Yeah, the Ethiopians have their own calendar. The Chinese have their own calendar. So their calendar is named after animals. Actually, they've just celebrated what's called the Osia. Yeah. So they had a god that put all animals, and they were put in a competition. So each and every animal that ran towards a given goal and how it behaved within the course of running, those are the attributes, you know. But I was saying that we also had specific, you know, we had specific months, and how months and how days are named, it is by following the position of the moon and the sun, and they're very much connected. So even within our own days, within different cultures, people will get to know that maybe this month the seasons were well spelled out. Yeah, it's really good when you choose to study and understand. Actually, you don't even have to study. You just have to be observant enough. Our culture speaks all this just because we are so much intertwined with the gadgets, so we don't pay attention to most of the things. But it's very beautiful to live within the terms of your own culture, because that's who you are.
You know, of late people have left their culture backward and are moving with what's going on. But anyway, back to our stories. Yesterday we were able to see Ukraine sent drones that hit St. Petersburg in Russia. Besides that, we want to go deeper into the Kenyan protests against the Ebola quarantine that is set to be set up by the US government in Nairobi, Kenya, whereby we saw the President of the Republic of Kenya. He came out and defended the deal, saying it was an agreement between the two governments to have such a deal. So, Doctor, we start with that. I think later on we shall have the presidential State of the Nation address, and we talk about it. But for starters, let's talk about the protests that were happening in Kenya. After the US came out and announced that they will be setting up a quarantine center in Nairobi for their Ebola patients, Americans specifically, to be treated within Kenya. Then later on, they will be taken back home. And remember that very week, we saw the government of the United States of America. They had a meeting where Trump came out and said that the life of the Americans matter more before anything. They prioritize their lives. That's why they're trying to set up a quarantine center in Nairobi for them to get treatment, then later on taken back home. But we saw quite a number of Kenyans going onto the streets to protest against it, saying it's not okay, being that Ebola cases are escalating each and every day. And very many people say it's not good. Why can't they take them back home? But Doctor, I want to pose a question. Is it a tool that is being used by Kenyans in case they are not satisfied with anything that is being presented by the government? Because it is not the first time that we see Kenyans on the streets. Whenever they are not okay, whenever the government pulls out something that is not favoring the people or the Kenyans, they go to the streets. So is it a tool? Is that how the government listens to what people are saying after people going to streets?
Yeah, Kenya has branded themselves like that. We've also been talking about it here, that Kenya has branded themselves like that. But first of all, that is it's their constitutional mandate. It's their constitutional right to show any kind of dissatisfaction at various levels.
Yes.
And it's not only a prerogative to the Kenyans, it's a prerogative to each and every society that respects human rights and freedom of expression. At the end of the day, Ruto is not Kenya. Ruto was just given a mandate to act on behalf of the Kenyans. Just because whenever we start talking about such kind of discussions, people are like, okay, is that the same case in Uganda? Yes. Museveni is working for the Ugandans, you know. They gave him another mandate of executing whatever he thinks is in the best interest of this country for the next 5 years. That's what the mandate, you know, that's what you call a constitutional mandate that people give you, you know. That is as per the arrangements of the social contract and the separation of power doctrines. So leaders are not gods. You know, the abilities or the roles of the leader are supposed to be checked.
Yes.
You know, there has what you call checks and balances. In a real sense, the checks would have been so much provided by the parliament. The kind of the day, like we've always been talking about here, the doctrine of separation of powers.
Yes.
You have the executive, the judicial, and the legislature. We don't have any of them that is stronger than the other. Each one of them is supposed to check. Now, in a representative democracy, who is supposed to check the executive? It's supposed to be the judiciary to ensure that all laws are followed in each and every procedure that's supposed to be executed, and the legislature also comes in because they have what you call representative democracy.
Yes.
So it is a right, not only in Kenya, not only in Uganda, but in each and every country that have chosen to go by the democratic principles and the rule of law. That's how it's supposed to be. So Kenya has not only branded themselves for the last 5 years. Kenya has been like that. One of the biggest protests that was in Kenya, I think it was during the days of Moi. It was called the Saba Saba movement. Very, 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 very terrible. Where so many young Kenyans, you know, hit on the streets.
You're talking about the events that happened in 2007?
No. This was 1980. This was 1980. No, 2007 is very recent. Actually, that was so bloody. What happened in 2007 was very, very bloody. But I was just trying to show you that what Kenyans are doing is legal. Only sometimes it gets escalated. It gets escalated. They start hurting, you know, people who are, you know, they start to extend like a couple of years ago, they were in position even to ban their parliament. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is very constitutional. But Ruto is also one of the most challenging leaders within the East African region.
Actually, I was going to talk about Ruto, him being a president of Kenya of late. Actually, ever since he took on power, we are seeing quite a number of protests ever since he took over power. And could we say that he wasn't prepared enough to lead the government or to take on the position of presidency in Kenya, being that, for example, a few days back, we saw people, same thing, still on the streets after the increasing prices of fuel. Later on, we are seeing a quarantine center, and still people are still doing the same thing. If I take you back, we were able to witness the Gen Z, as they used to call themselves, after the bills and laws that were being presented to Parliament, to the extent that this led to the storming of the Parliament, and very many people were vandalized. You know, people lost lives, and I don't really know, but how was do you think Ruto was he prepared to do what he's doing right now? Because he has faced a lot of challenges.
Yeah, that is
people saying he should resign, to the extent that at some point the Parliament also reached a point of saying Ruto must also resign.
No, that's what democracy is all about. Just because you're not seeing it in your land doesn't mean that. That's what democracy. No. That's what democracy means. Democracy means that you and I can become leaders.
Yes.
You know, you and I, so long as you have a senior 6 certificate and you are above 18 and you have paid your taxes. You understand?
Yes.
So that's what democracy is all about. Everyone is given an opportunity to have a say, whether they agree with you or disagree with you. That's how it has to be. And by the way, it is the mandate of the government to ensure that people show their dissatisfaction at various levels. In other words, when people are demonstrating, the government is supposed to protect them, to help them protest. Democracy is very, very, very funny. Democracy is very funny. That's one of the beautiful things that we are missing in most of our societies. As democracy is very, very beautiful, to the extent that even people that you look at and be like, what? Can this really happen? So that's what democracy is all about. Two, Kenya and the Western powers have positioned Kenya as a very different East African country. If you happen to look at Uganda, Tanzania, we are a little bit of conservative societies. Tanzania has been conservative for the last 50. Uganda is getting so conservative each and every day. Of course, Rwanda is typical conservative state. It's like North Korea almost. But Kenya has always branded themselves as a country that has a little bit of what you call civil liberties. In other words, the civic space in Kenya is very, very, very open. Why? Because from the traditions of Kenya and as a territory, as a European territory, that's how it was brought up. That's how it was brought up. The amount of money that Kenya gets from the Western people that come in as their citizens, as tourists. So Kenya is just a doorway. So they've made it open. It was not by mistake that Obama became a president of the United States of America. So they positioned Kenya like that. And they so much wanted that to happen. A little bit of the conservative leader that Kenya had was Moi, because Moi was a little bit very terrible. He was an Iron Man. But of course, when Kibaki came in, it was a little bit free. When Uhuru Kenyatta came in, it was a little bit free. And then when, even during this time, William Samoei Ruto is also little, a little bit getting that free space and giving it to them, right? So you really have to mention and understand the trend. So Kenya has always been an open society in that very level, at that very level. 3, Ruto was a businessman. Now there's a difference between politics and business.
But was in business and is still in business. But if I take you back, he was the vice president of Kenya. So he has been in politics and business at the same time.
He was the vice president who was locked.
To the extent that they had issues with his boss.
Yeah, like his last term, he was not even allowed to move anywhere. He was not even allowed to move anywhere. Actually, not so many people were surprised to see that he was in position to run for presidency. What you have to understand that Kenya's leadership has always been in Kanu. Kenya leadership has always been in Kanu. They've never had anyone that has led Kenya outside Kanu. Let it be Ruto, let it be, you have to be endorsed. Just like how Tanzania is taking place. No, we've never had any leader that has not come out from the Chama cha Mapinduzi.
Yes.
It has to be Chama cha Mapinduzi. So when people like Tindo Lissu come up from the Chadema, they can't really mention. So Kenya has always branded themselves like that. I was just saying that the last presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta, it was very, very, very terrible. Very, very terrible on the side. Actually, one time, Ruto was moving to Uganda and he was arrested. The vice president was arrested when he was coming to Uganda. So if we say that his presidency, vice presidency, was a little bit of, he was like a lame duck. It was a lame duck. That's what we refer to it. Like someone that seems to have the powers, but they don't have the powers to get everything done. So 2, I was saying that he is more of a businessman, not a politician. Yes. Because there's a difference between what you call a politician and a businessman.
What would you say is more of a businessman than a politician?
He's more of a businessman, just like you see Trump. A businessman is about transactions and profits. It's about transactions and profits. And then there also what you call a difference between an activist and a politician.
Yes.
A politician, politics so much thrives on consensus and a little bit of what we would call a compromise. Okay, someone wants 100% from you. Can you give them 20%? No. An activist is a person that goes like, it's climate change. That's what we are fighting for. For them, they don't change goalposts. But a politician can hit here. After a minute, they hit here. After a minute, they come this side.
Yes.
At the end of the day, what they are looking for is that specific interest that is going to help them consolidate themselves in power. So Ruto has not so much been a player. The best politician that we've had in this region is President Museveni.
But Doctor, on to Ruto's case, do you think he has the potential to come in for the next term, being that we're seeing such issues when it comes to protest? People have protested a lot under his governance. Do you think he has the potential of coming back? Because at the moment, people say Ruto must resign. Each and every time they go into streets, they are not okay. What comes out of their mouth is Ruto must resign. He has let the Kenyans down.
I'm not sure he has let them down. No, he has not. Now, you really have to understand how many Kenyans have you seen on the streets? Because people who are demonstrating, they're not even 10,000. Kenya is a country that has almost 52 million people.
I'll take you back if you remember the Gen Z protest. Very many people were on the streets. The young, mostly.
There's something that I wanted to say that I've already given you two. Let me give you the third one. When Ruto came, Ruto is a Pentecostal Christian and branded Pan-African. I'm not sure how he values all that. So by the time he came in, Kenya was a little bit sliding back in terms of foreign policies. with certain groups of people. This is what I was trying to show you. When you are a politician and a state leader or a person that is a head of state, things are not, you don't do things the way you want. No, that's when you get to understand. So by the time you've turned out to be a leader, your country has a lot of debts. Yes. And you don't do whatever you wish. Because most of the African leaders that we've always been talking about, we've always talked about here, they are arrested already. By the time that you subscribe to a document that you don't even understand, the so-called constitution, you're already taken up. So when Ruto came up, one of the first challenges he got was the floods. Yes. They hit him with the floods. Yes. And that was very terrible. 2, internet cables were cut in Kenya in 2023. Now that was something. Not until when he had to run to Washington. Actually, he didn't run to Washington. He went to Atlanta, Georgia, and he was welcomed by, Taylor Perry and all those American homosexuals. They received them there. Now, it is during Ruto's time that there is something that they promoted in Kenya, which is called a neuroscientific ID. It's like a microchip that they put onto a baby that have just been followed. It's a digital ID, right? A digital ID, but they put it into the system of a baby. Now that's a Microsoft program endorsed by Bill Gates. And the first African country to endorse it was Kenya. So what you're seeing happening within Kenya, it is a game that is beyond Ruto. That's what I'm trying to show you. You need someone that has had experience in dealing with so many people. Now, what we so much call leadership in so many African leaders don't have that mandate. By the time someone comes over, they've already set for them a template that they're supposed to follow. Yes. Now, the moment you go astray, the moment you go beyond the expectations or the predicted terms and conditions, you're going to have confrontation. You're going to have challenges. People are going to come against you. And most of the demonstrations that you're seeing in most of the African countries are supported. They are supported. They are by programs. Western countries. People are paid. I'll give an example. During the time of Mohamed Morsi. Mohamed Morsi is the person that took over leadership after Hosni Mubarak, right? After Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, most of the people that were coming up in the Tahrir Square, they were paid $10,000. Someone comes, pays you $10,000. And you know what they want you to do? You just keep yourself at Tahrir Square, right? In the evening, someone comes and gives you again $10,000. Please come back again tomorrow. That's why Mohamed Morsi was taken after almost leading for just 1 year. Because he was coming from the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, he was an American trainee because he started from America. But when he came into the leadership, he was so much pushing the ideology of the Islam, because at the end of the day, he was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Americans would not like that, because one of the biggest countries that is very influential on the African continent is Egypt. Yes. America gives Egypt almost $4.5 billion military support. Why? Because it is what they use to control the Suez Canal and the Bab el Mandeb. So what I'm trying to show you is that most of the African leaders that you see, they are moving on Western templates. We just talked about an example of Samia Suluhu yesterday. When she visited France, she got arrested and she was violated. Actually, her flight was terminated and it was hijacked. She was hijacked in space because after being humiliated at the airport, she told her people, please, let's go back. And she was intercepted by the French planes. She was in France, but almost an arrested president of an independent country from Africa. They are seriously abused. Our leaders are captured at different levels. So that's why they sign so many fake deals. Yes. One of the problems that we've been having in this country is Ebola. Ebola is nowhere. Ebola is not going to Burundi, it's not going to Rwanda, it's just coming to Uganda. As if Congolese are not crossing to Rwanda, as if Congolese are not crossing to Tanzania.
Or DRC.
Or, at the end of the day. So what I'm trying to show you is that our leaders are made to sign things that are not in the people's favor, that do not favor their own people. By the end of the day, there is someone that has a business at a global scale. That's the challenge that we're having. That you hear, Simanya, Ebola is what? Ebola is moving. Not until when the Congolese have started beating up doctors. There was a video actually that was making rounds.
Circulating around social media as the civilians that attacked a camp and they set ablaze all the medical camps and started fighting with medical doctors that
camp. They've so far burnt like 4.
Yes,
and there was one where medical doctors were carrying a casket to take it for burial. And people were following. Not until when the casket dropped down and there was nothing in the casket. So the Congolese are saying, you guys have just been making noise. The casket was empty. These are doctors that are certified by the World Health Organization. They were pretending that they are going to bury someone who has died of Ebola. But the casket was empty. And the Congolese were like, what is this? They are beating the hell out of them. These are the cases that African leaders are dealing with. So if you have to be a Museveni a little bit, you have to be a Museveni. And of course, most of the leaders, because they are still very young, not young in age, but young in experience. Doctor. You know, it's a very serious challenge for Ruto. All those uprisings that you see, I'm not saying that the Kenyans don't have legitimate causes, but all those are checks. Let's just give an example. Macron was just in Nairobi.
Yes.
Why of all countries?
Well, I posed that question to you and I asked what is so special about Kenya, because we're seeing very many people from different parts of the world, potential investors that can invest money all over their own to the African continent, but they only have interest in Kenya, to the extent that Dangote, after talking about the refinery, they proposed Tanga, but later on he said Nairobi, Kenya is the suitable, actually has the most location that will be able to favor my refinery. And I came here and I asked you a question. Why is it all, you know, everything that is good goes to Kenya, you know?
Yeah, so what I was trying to put up for is that it's a very big challenge. Our leaders are, most of the leaders that you see, it is almost what's happening with Trump. Trump is also a victim. He didn't want to get involved in the war with Iran. All these last 7 American presidents, they were dragged, they were forced to attack Iran. Obama said no. Biden said no. Bush said no. Why do you think it was, you know, Trump? You think Trump has issues with Khamenei? No. So what you have to understand is that all leaders worldwide, they are captured and they are supposed to implement policies that so much don't favor their people. And most especially when it comes to the African leadership, it's on another level. And the last victim, or the biggest victim that we have right now, it is our brother Ruto. You have to be a Traore. You have to be a Traore to lead. You have to be a Museveni to lead. Yes, for so many times you've seen Museveni also a little bit of bending because the terms and the conditions are not easy. They are not easy.
Remember the story that we made yesterday where the president and the Uganda as a country and the European Union were celebrating 50 years of partnership. The president came out and said the European countries should mind about supporting the industrialization of Africa, saying it is good. How is it good? It will enable development within onto the African continent. Besides that, it will fight unemployment, whereby of late Africa has one of the most growing population. Most of them are youths, and most of them are just seated. They have nothing to do. But I said this will enable also the European countries to benefit. How? The trade between the two continents, Africa or Uganda specifically, and then European countries. You know, so I would say, if you say, that's why I posed the question to you, that do you believe you can live without the intervention of the European countries? And so
yeah, and I said we can live, but not like with such leadership, not with such documents. You need a person like Traore, you need a person like Gaddafi, you need a person like Mugabe. Like you need what you call a renegade. Like you need someone that's going to stand strong. But of course, also playing this game with a little bit of caution, because most of those people that have gone from zero to what, like Magufuli, they've not survived. They've not survived.
Doctor, let's go in for a short commercial break. We'll be right back, and we talk about the presidential national address that happened yesterday on the 4th of June 2026 at, as I said, Kololo ceremonial grounds, where he came out and criticized leaders that have failed Uganda, and he clarified onto the term. He says this term is called Team No More Sleep. There is no more sleeping. He condemned those that engage themselves in corruption, and he said it is just a beginning. We are coming back. Don't touch that dial.
You have another Magaga in Karamoja. Because you remember Magaga, the father of General Kavuma, told me that he did not know what to do with the money. Since he didn't enter, since in Shoveiri, every 15 days I get money. Now here you have got this man from Abim saying that I'm not going to suffer, my family will not suffer, bye-bye to poverty, He's here speaking in English, and he speaks very clear English. That's why I like that video. With the big farmers and the manufacturers, the government has put a total of Uganda shillings 1,600 billion in the UDB. Because the question was, once we started preaching, stop working for the stomach only, work for the stomach and the pocket. Some of the communities in the cattle corridor, they didn't ask for capital. They moved without capital. They used their own capital. The only thing we gave them was advice. But in the other areas, they didn't have the indigenous, because for them they had indigenous cows, they converted them and they got capital, many of them. But in other areas, it was not so easy. So that's why we started with the Ntandikwa and NADS and Operation Wealth Creation and now PDM. But this is for the smaller people. The question is now, how about the big farmers and the manufacturers? Yes, we have not forgotten those. With the big farmers and the manufacturers, the government has put a total of Uganda shillings 1,600 billion in the UDB. The interest rate for that money is 12% per annum. The interest rate for PDM is 6% per annum and payable after 2 years. Hence, for shillings 1 million, the borrower will return shillings 1.2 million for PDM. We are always creating other funds for the ghettos, for the musicians, etc. So capital is not a problem. Unlike the colonial agents who never want to plan for Africa, we have told Ugandans that our economy has got potential in 4 sectors. Services, commercial agriculture, manufacturing, and ICT. The president is here. Parliament is here. Once people have woken up from sleep and they want low-cost capital, if the shillings 100 million per parish per annum or any other fund is not enough, we can increase the money by adjusting from other areas. With the cattle corridor, we did not wait for low-interest capital. As already said, our only contribution to them was the word. In the cattle corridor, the work there was echigambo, like the one with the Bible. In the beginning, there was the word. The word was God. There, we just used the word. In the other areas, we used the word and the...
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll come back from that short commercial break. If you just joined us, you are watching New Day, a program that kickstarts your day with information at hand, and we believe we give you stories that have really made headlines, and we feel like as a Ugandan, you should wake up in the know and start your day with information that will enable you thrive into the day. As usual with Myanmar, with Dr. Samuel Charles, and we're talking about stories that made headline all over this week, being that it is a Friday, and we're able to talk about the ongoing protests that have been happening in Kenya about the Ebola quarantine center that was said to be constructed within Kenya by the United States of America. But later on, we saw Kenyans coming onto the streets protesting, saying it's not favorable for their country, being that as media agents have been publishing outside to the public, saying that Ebola cases have kept on increasing day by day by day, and saying the Kenyans are on the streets saying it is not good for their country. But besides that, yesterday we were able to see the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, after appointing a cabinet of ministers, a group of cabinet ministers that were vetted at the beginning of this week. We saw many of them, like 4 to 3, didn't go through the vetting process. But besides yesterday, he came out and addressed the nation on issues concerning national matters. He came out and talked about the Moluka chiefs that have been asking for motorcycles, saying that they do not need motorcycles. All they need is a bicycle to enable them do what they're supposed to do, moving house to house, and to see that service delivery is being provided onto their locals than asking for motorcycles. But besides that, he also talked about corruption. He said, for those that have been engaging in corruption, it is just the beginning. More people will come out, and more corruption cases. We're yet to see more people that are being investigated on. We are yet to see reports concerning corruption cases among different government officials. He said, if you've been engaged in corruption, be mindful that this time round it is a term no more sleep. So the government is not sleeping anymore. It will tackle issues that are concerned the local Ugandans. He came out into his submission and criticized leaders that have failed Ugandans. The problem, as he said, that has affected service delivery and enable the country to develop going further, it's because of the poor leadership that the Ugandans have entrusted those with the leadership, but later on they fail them due to their personal desires. Doctor, we start with that.
Yeah, the state of the national address is a constitutional obligation of the president to come out and talk to the people and inform them exactly. Actually, it's one of the biggest opportunities that Ugandans have to hear from the person that they entrusted their leadership or their mandate to.
But surprisingly, what I forgot to mention, still again, we are not able to see opposition leaders. They came out and said that as the opposition of the government, they will not be able to attend the national address. And surprisingly, we didn't see them, except we saw Norbert Mao, being that he has appointed a Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. He was he attended in person, and a couple of delegates. But the opposition side, no, mostly they didn't go there, saying that there is nothing that Museveni will say that will help the Ugandans.
I think they boycotted for several times. The boycotts have been around for some time. And it's their right, by the way. It's their right as well. It's their right as well. Yeah, it's their right as well. But the fact that you've a little bit of accepted to work with the government, because the opposition doesn't mean that you're supposed to be opposing each and everything.
Yes.
Now that you've accepted to work with the government, they should be in position to challenge him. They should be in position to challenge him. Boycotting would just be okay. Maybe they will also give us an alternative. Yeah, as Museveni would be addressing people, as Museveni was addressing people in Colorado, they would as well be addressing people.
So saying what?
Somewhere.
So saying what?
No, because at the end of the day, it's the state of nation address. Yeah. Yes, by the constitution, it is the president of the country that's supposed to do it.
Yeah.
But of course, being an opposition, you also have the mandate. I can also come up and say, according to what I think, this is the state of the nation address. Yes, this is the state of the nation. You talk about peace, security, employment, economy. Yeah, they would have given us an alternative.
Okay.
But since they didn't give us an alternative, I don't think they had any reasons to boycott. If they're in a position to give us an alternative, like a serious alternative, I think that would be okay. But I was saying that the president has the mandate to speak to the people. By the way, this is one of the biggest responsibilities that Ugandans should listen to when the president is addressing us. Come on, for the last 5 years, we've given you our resources, we've given you our money, we've given you the people. You've been able to Gambia. Now you come and explain how have you performed. Now the state of the nation, it means that economically, socially, politically, this is how the state is. So the president is dividing and speaking about each and everything, most especially what they've been in position to do. You understand?
Yes.
So it's an address, and the president is supposed to get it done. So he's supposed to report on national progress. How have we performed? You know, as a nation, how have we performed? After giving them the 70 trillion million shillings in terms of our budget, you know, I mean, the 70 trillion shillings, you know, how have you performed? We really need to get to know. You know, is the education system pushing forward? Is the economy moving forward? Is trade and security okay? You know, it's a little bit of that. And then the president is also supposed to talk about what you call, is the president is supposed to give what you call accountability as well. You know, giving accountability means that you're supposed to tell us exactly out of this so and so given amount of money that we gave you, how has this money been used? You know, what are the projects that we've been in position to embark on? How are they progressive? You know, so being accountable is very, very, very important. And then after giving us the accountability and after giving us the State of the Nation address, now we must be in a position to come out with the policies. Because most of the government programs cannot be implemented in a year or two. They are supposed to be progressive projects. Like, for instance, some of the most expensive projects that the government has been embarking on, we've always been talking about them. The Standard Gauge Line, the East African Pipeline, the oil refinery, the 12 industrial parks. You know, those are some of the biggest infrastructure developments. The energy sector, those are some of the biggest investments that Ugandan money is being spent on. So the president has to also come through and take us through what's called the policy direction. What are the policy directives that have been so much developed? And it has to align. We've always been here talking about Vision 2040. Are all these in line with the Vision 2040? Because as Ugandans, we came up with a 3-decade approach, because the Vision 2040 was designed, I think, in 2010, and it was supposed to help Ugandans move in a given direction or pushing Uganda into what's called the middle income status by 2040. Are all these policies in alignment with the Vision 2040? Because the Vision 2040 has so many issues. Number one is the infrastructure development. And by the look of things that is there, you can see that in each and every sector or each and every region, there are certain infrastructure projects that have been embarked on by the government. Some of them have been accomplished, some of them are still work in progress, right? And then the second is about human capital development. Human capital development, this is where education comes from. The skilling of the Ugandans to ensure that they can be in a position to lift this economy, to put this economy on their shoulders and deliver it to what you call the middle income status. So the point is, all these have to be a little bit, very, very classic. And by the way, now all academic institutions, including universities, they'll be writing papers about this. All university professors will be writing papers about this. Okay. You understand? Is what Museveni is saying right? And we should be in position to have open discussions. Let people debate. The president was talking about the parish chiefs and all that. Let discussions go down to the parishes. Let Ugandans get involved. Because at the end of the day, yes, we gave you the mandate, but it's just a limited mandate. The social contract is going for 5 years. How do you get Ugandans involved? Get Ugandans involved by giving them a say. Let them assess you as well. That's why I'm a little bit disappointed with the opposition. Yes, you've chosen not to attend, but what is the alternative? You also give us your status.
They have not given us any alternative.
You give us your alternative as well, right? So from what we said, I was giving a little bit of what the president is supposed to be doing mandatorily. Number one is supposed to give us the progress. The status. Okay. Number two is supposed to do what we call accountability, right? And number three now is supposed to give us what we call policy direction. Now that we are here, this is where we are headed. And then number four is supposed to show us what we call resource mobilization. Now, resource mobilization, like for each and everything that's supposed to be, because at the end of the day, the president is giving us what they've been in position, how they've been in position to progress in a given year, right? And then it's also showing us how we are moving forward in a given year, right? And now, in order to move forward, we must be in position to know, yes, President Museveni, you're taking us forward again, but let us look at what we call the resource mobilization or national mobilization. How are people mobilized to ensure that they face into this kind of direction that you're setting them to? And are they the priorities according to Ugandans? Now, the NRM came up with a manifesto, right? And it's what they're going to be implementing. But are they the pressing needs that Ugandans have? Do Ugandans agree?
Do you believe that Ugandans have the money?
What do you mean?
Because they said Ugandans are not poor.
No, poverty is relative and poverty is individual. So I can't say that Ugandans are poor, Ugandans are rich, because poverty is relative and poverty is, Two, we have a very big of a serious misconception about what we call poverty. You know, people think that poverty is the lack of money. That's not true. That's the Western definition of poverty.
Okay.
Ugandans eat well, and organic food, by the way.
Okay.
They sleep well. Their kids are going to school. So Uganda is not that poor. Most especially when you look at it, the broader perspective. Ugandans are not doing bad. But just because we think that when you don't have a dollar, now we define poverty by standards of the World Bank, that if someone does not be in position to earn a dollar, they are broke. No, they are not broke. So many Ugandans have their own houses than even Americans.
Yes.
You understand? So many Ugandans graduate without school, without loan schemes. So by the time an American graduates, you're supposed to be what you call a student's debt. All American students that graduate, most of them pay debts. It's very expensive for an American to own their own house. Very, very expensive. Why? Okay. Because they have to pay mortgages. By the time most of the Ugandans hit 30, they have their own homes. So if you're talking about poverty in a perspective of the Western definition, definitely most Ugandans are poor. But Ugandans eat well, they stay strong. Ugandans own land. Do you know what it means to own land in most of the Western countries? So Ugandans have relationships that are flourishing. Actually, I don't even want to say Ugandans, Africans. So, but if you go by the definitions, of the World Health Organization, the World Bank, the IMF, Ugandans are poor. But I don't believe that is true. Our societies, people are doing well. People have their own coffee. People have their own food. By the way, that's one of the challenges, or that's one of the opportunities that have made leadership a little bit. President Museveni is always claiming that is so much claiming that leaders are a disappointment right now. You know what? Because Ugandans are a little bit okay. They're a little bit okay. Having access to the food resources, most of the Ugandans can take their kids to school and they start up to university without even borrowing anywhere. That's not the case in other countries, most especially in the West. Because for you to teach a student and they graduate at bachelor's level, you have to have spent a lot of money. You understand? Now, they move by insurance. They move by credit what? They move by credit cards. So the system of Africa or the system of Uganda is very different. So that's why when you're asking about Ugandans being poor and all that, I'm saying that is relative. How would you want to rate that in your own perspective?
When he was addressing the nation, he emphasized a few of the key points that he emphasized. He emphasized economic sovereignty, where he stated that Uganda's independence in shaping economic trajectory will still welcome more investors to come and invest more money within Uganda. He mentioned about industrialization, saying it's the way to go for the African continent and also Uganda, being that we are an agricultural country. So he said that with this, more industries can be set up to enable the development, hence providing employment opportunities to the Ugandans that are growing. He also instructed the Parliament of Uganda to work hand in hand with wealth creation projects such as the PDM to enable the people that have been working for, as he called Chidachonka, to the extent that he had to provide evidence of a few people that have been able to benefit from such projects, saying that it is the way to go for the Ugandans out there. He also tackled governance and accountability, the anti-corruption, where he warned leaders, he called them lazy and corrupt leaders. I said that accountability yet to be seen onto leaders and enforced onto them to see what they have done. So each leader is meant yet to be accountable for what they have been doing. Where he said that you find a leader, for example, a minister, he's a minister of Karamoja, but he spends most of the time in Kampala. He does not even know what are the problems that are affecting the people of Karamoja. He says such leaders are going to be accountable, and he instructed the parliament to work hand in hand with a government institution to see that such people are being brought on board to see what they have done according to service delivery and for the better of their subjects. Yes.
Yeah, I was a little bit of trying to wrap up everything with that. The president's communication has always been the same.
Yes.
The communication
expected him to talk about Ebola.
Yeah, the communication has been the same. There's some consistency in what he has been speaking for. Addressing people for quite some time. There's some consistency. Now you look at the people that are around him, and they're like, okay, this is the direction. Is this the president's direction or is it a Ugandan direction? Because at the time you follow his communication and you're like, okay, now you'd like to see ministers that have been so much put in given various responsibilities to ensure that they are going to come up with policies that they are going to execute on, and you're like, you don't say anything. So the communication of the president for the last 25 years has been the same. But when it comes to the implementation on the ground, you don't see things happening. So that's why I was saying that when you're doing the major focus of the State of the Nation address is number one, you report on national progress. After reporting on national progress, you do accountability on the resources that you've been given. After giving the accountability, now you do what you call a policy direction. In other words, that now that we are moving in a new financial year, you give what you call a policy direction. After giving us a policy direction, we go now into what you call national mobilization. That's why I was saying that you should have so many voices coming up, the civil society, Ugandans, universities, university professors, students should be debating about, is what the president said, is what the president addressed in real? Is it a reflection of the society? Is that the Uganda that you know? Those are some of the questions. And that can also be pushed by the political parties, by the opposition political parties. But
surprisingly, they did not attend, so I believe that
maybe they have a plan. Maybe they have a plan. You never know.
But it's not the first time that I'm missing out our presidential national address. Yes.
So they should be in a position also. In other words, the debate should not be about the president. Now we should be checking the facts. We should be checking the facts. We should be in a position to look at the reflection in the budget. Because if he's saying that we are moving to this direction, do we have the money to move into that very direction? Are we still in alignment with the Vision 2040? What we have happened that we are doing something else? So that would be what we call national mobilization. Now, after doing national mobilization, now we go into what we call priorities. What are the key priorities? What should be the key priorities? So the biggest challenge that we have in our society is that people think that democracy means you go and vote. After voting, you wait for another political term. That's very wrong. Democracy means that you should keep your voices heard at various fronts, at each and every different level. That's what it means.
Doctor, yes, I believe it is right that we should keep our voices heard. But do you believe our voices can be heard? Because any just minor going to the streets to do a peacefully protesting in a peaceful way, you don't really know what happens after that. You see police officers and.
Why do you want to go to streets?
How are they supposed to send them?
You are now raising your voice right now. Aren't you Ugandan?
Of course, I'm a Ugandan.
Yeah, there are so many ways. You don't have to go to the streets. People have.
Yes, I might have the opportunity because I'm on TV, but there's someone there that feel like he has.
Yeah, they should. They should use their TikTok. They should use their X. Those are all up fronts.
Okay.
Those are all different platforms that have been put forward.
Computer Misuse Act.
No. This is the point. In a representative democracy, all of us are not supposed to be parliamentarians.
Yeah.
You understand? Because the last concept, the last part of the State of the Nation address would be what you call the legislative guidance. Now, I was telling you a little bit of the order of why the president comes in. Number one, assessing the performance. Number two, accountability. Number three, policy direction. Number four, national mobilization. And then the last bit of the State of the Nation address would be, that's why he addresses the parliament, would be legislative guidance. Now, the legislature, which was the parliament where the president was speaking to, they are supposed to say, is what the president saying right legally? Do we have the resources that can push us into this direction legally? Is what the president doing legitimate? You understand? That's why the legislature is the last, That's why I was saying that the discussion doesn't have to stop amongst the three organs. Ugandans have a right too. So we all don't have to be in the parliament to make our voices heard, right? And by the way, we have a chance of calling our parliamentarians back. We call them in Tugamba, Fabe Masaka, Muchala Namere, first come back here. This is what we think about the president, So that's what democracy is all about.
Yes.
So we don't have to wait for 2031. So if you have your TikTok account, if you have your X account, if you're a person, a little bit of privilege, like you have, who has an opportunity to speak out, speak out. And just because you've spoken out doesn't mean that whatever you've suggested is going to be done.
And
right?
I'll tell my neighbors to give me everything they want to send to the president. They'll give them to me. And
No. They don't have to give them to you because you're not a leader. You're not legitimately elected.
I'll come and speak for them.
They should use their platforms as well. This is one of the platforms that you're having. You know, so let them use TikTok.
And
let them
I'm
use
also
X.
the platform they have. So
no, you also the platform you own so far.
Come here and
yes.
give out their
so
But doctor,
the problem is that Ugandans think in our society, we've been made to feel or to believe that now we are waiting for 2021. That's where we are, right? But that doesn't mean it, that everything is done. We can use our voices. I'll give an example. We've had a rant for almost 2 weeks now when Professor Lawrence Muganga was, appointed to serve.
I know you have to talk about that.
No. There's something that I want to put out.
Yes.
That Ugandans that you thought that maybe is not legitimate, that they qualified to stand in or to serve or to represent or to act as a state minister. They were raising their voices on different accounts.
Yes.
Yeah.
X,
on TikTok.
Yes.
Everywhere people are writing articles. That's how it should be. We shouldn't use it maliciously. We shouldn't use it maliciously because maybe we think a given tribe is not that qualified, but we should use it constructively. Why should we use all that energy and attack Dr. Lawrence Muganga, and we can't use it to attack our own leadership? I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
I get your point.
So if you have an MP that's not functioning in your own community, why not raise those voices? Like hold that energy that people were directing to Professor Lawrence Muganga. But you understand? That is powerful.
Doctor, you've brought that, and I wanted to talk about it, though it wasn't part of the script. But then, doctor, the appointment or the cabinet that was appointed by His Excellency, I expected him to talk about the few people that he appointed and they didn't go through the vetting process. And as you've mentioned, I've seen quite a number of articles that have been published out onto social media platforms and also newspapers talking about the appointments of a different individual. For example, they came out and said the Minister of Education, the former and still the acting, and still the Minister of Education, Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Uganda, Janet Museveni, he didn't go. She wasn't able to attend the vetting process with no information that has been provided, that no reason behind it. And we are seeing the opposition leaders coming out to say, why did she write a letter to inform the vetting committee that she will not attend in person, and we still don't know about that. But besides that, you've talked about Muganga being dropped out into the vetting process. It's not only him, but though his name has come out loudly than the rest, there is a lady, a daughter to former minister, that is Sam Kutesa, but she didn't go through the vetting process because of her dual citizenship to a different country. And we don't, the Constitution does not allow anyone to hold a position with dual citizenship. So should we say that the president wasn't clear on when he was appointing different people? Because I'm sure he knew, he did investigation to each and every one before publishing out a list of cabinet members that he appointed. Then why are we seeing this, that very many people are being dropped out into the vetting process?
Not very many people.
Four of them.
It's only one, by the way.
Therefore.
Really? Confirmed? Because the last time I checked, it was only one.
Muganga, that shot the daughter to Sam Kutesa, and also the MP. You mentioned him yesterday, but I forgot his name. Yes, the three.
I think I need to check. But of course, the one that I'm sure of is Professor Lawrence Muganga because of his dual citizenship. It was. I think that's legitimate. That's a legitimate point. But of course, there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of politics in between there. President Museveni is a smart man. I don't believe by the time he put him on the list, he didn't do a lot of fact check. And I believe he was in a position to do some kind of background too. A person like Dr. Lawrence Muganga is very pragmatic. He's very pragmatic. And one of the ministries that has a lot of circus and drama is the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So you don't need someone that has almost changed the education system of this country in just 3-4 years. You put him in a ministry that has a lot of...
How has it changed?
The
ministry of
the education system. Yes. He has changed the education system very, very seriously. Most of the universities that we are having are colonial, traditional universities. He's the only person that has been in position to set up a modern university, and it's moving very, very forward. So many Ugandans have gone back to school because of what the university aids has been in position to design programs that favor people to study while retaining their positions of work. They don't have papers. You've gone to very many universities here where professors are dying with the fake papers, very, very ancient systems. Victoria University is a modern university, a very modern university, and the systems are operating to the extent that even a Kadama can study from wherever they are. You don't have to stop being a Kadama. You can study from wherever you are, and you attend to classes. Yes. That's a little bit,
I remember him introducing the AI open classes
all
to
those.
Each and everyone free of charge at Victoria University.
So you can't just challenge the entire system. Now, wherever you're going to go, people are going to be like, but of course, there have been some other voices of his tribe and all that. I don't believe that is a little bit of a serious issue. Of course, they got that loophole. They got him at that loophole of not having of having the dual citizenship. Of course, that's a very bit challenging. Now, I don't think it would have been the major issue. The major issue is the personality he represents. The personality he represents is very pragmatic. He's a very straightforward man. He's a doer. He's a performer. And some of the reasons as to why most of the ministers and the government officers have been so much reluctant in their positions is because they know to keep quiet. Now, you don't expect a person like Dr. Lawrence Muganga to be that person that you're going to put on the law. No. He will always rise up. So he represents a little bit of threats. He represents a lot of energy, which I think some people are not comfortable with, and definitely they had to get a loophole of how to stop him from, exercising or getting through. And definitely they won't. That's what politics is all about, by the way. That's what politics is all about. In politics, you don't have to do right. It's not about doing what's right. No, that's only in the church. In the church is where you have to do right. Now, in politics, you don't have to do right. You just have to know how to compromise and play the game. Because you're serving so many forces. Now, there are so many forces in a given society, and you have to find a way of playing with all these forces. You understand? And sometimes you have to tone down in terms of your character. Sometimes you have to, it's all about knowing how to play the game. I'll give an example. President Museveni can meet the born agains, right? In the evening, he can call Mama Fina, and they also meet them. Right?
Because
in the evening,
he's a leader.
Yes, in the morning, the following day, he can go to Chibuli. In the afternoon, tomorrow, he goes to Odi Kampala. So a politician, you don't have to be like an activist, because an activist is this direction. A politician, you are like this. That is according to Machiavelli. You have to do what you call a flexible. You have to take in what we call a flexible disposition. You have to know when to be a lion and when to be a fox. And you have to know when to play like an animal and when to play like a human being. And President Museveni has mastered that. So I think by character, Dr. Lawrence Muganga was a little bit of a threat to so many. So they just used a little bit of his personality and what he represents, and they had to put up so many rants. Definitely, the public opinion was like, but of course, he lost. He lost the game politically, but I don't think he lost because he's not credible. He's very credible. He's very competent. He has all what it takes to serve, and I believe would have served to the best interests and all that. But definitely, that's what politics is all about. Yeah.
But Doctor, back to the national address that happened yesterday. The president came out and criticized our political leaders that are corrupt, and we saw quite a number of action. We saw a security operative doing some investigations onto the former Speaker of the 11th Parliament, the Right Honourable Anita Among. So, should we say that this time round, as it says, this term no more sleep? So, should we expect some more of such action, investigations on two different individuals that are being involved in corruption cases? But besides that, should we expect more served when it comes to service delivery, being that he was able to mention a couple of them to the extent that he had to quote the NRM manifesto that happened, that was in 2021, around there. and prioritized industrialization. Should we expect more of the service delivery to the locals? And first, I'll pose this question to Ray again. So, should we say that the NRM party and the president of the Republic of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, is he waking up at the moment to see where loopholes were and how to fix the loopholes, or to make sure that he provides the better to the Ugandans? After serving for 40 years, we see him in a different phase this time around when it comes to fighting corruption. Besides corruption, he of late is prioritizing more industrialization, employment. He criticized people going to Dubai, and he asked, "Why are you going to Dubai?" You know, and I know he posed the question, but he knew the answer himself. And
what is the answer?
They're going to look for more opportunities that they cannot find here. That is the answer. He knows it. That's what I think. But he posed the question and said, why are people going to Dubai? Can't we do what they're doing in Dubai here? More industrialization, emphasizing government programs such as the PDM, to make sure that at least each and every Ugandan has that money in their pocket while producing, and also adding value additional onto the products that are being produced. So should we expect more in this?
No, there are so many questions. The first question you've said is about corruption. Yeah, corruption cannot be fought by the NRM because it is a product of the NRM. So the day the NRM will start to fight corruption, that will be the end of the NRM. So don't expect any kind of fight against corruption. Corruption has turned out to be one of the pillars of the NRM. They are very proud of it. And that's how leaders come to power. That's how leaders consolidate themselves in power. It is becoming one of the most legitimate tools that the NRM has legitimatized.
So it is a tool that is being used by the NRM.
And it is endorsed by all of them. All of them. I don't think they can fight it.
Head to bottom?
Definitely. And of course, local people don't have any kind of money. They don't have any kind of money. All the misuse and the misappropriation of funds is done, of course, by the seniors, by those that have the powers. Yes, so I don't think fighting corruption is going to be, because when it comes to fighting corruption, we have more resources and more organs and more agencies that are supposed to do that. And what are they doing if we are giving them budgets on an annual basis? So I don't think the president, I don't see that happening. I see more corruption instead. Yeah, because because most of the corrupt officers have been brought back. Yeah, they've been brought back. So with the corruption,
Dr. Laiku.
Many. You were telling me some of the names before you came on air.
Hey, which one?
Yeah, most of the corrupt officers. No, I'll give you an example with the people that were in the Babati scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the people that were in the Babati scandal. We don't know how that case was really finished.
And I was surprised when you talk about that case. Only one individual was arrested.
Yeah.
Yes, we saw the Prime Minister, Minister Lugolobi, we saw the Vice President, very many of them, but it all ended up onto the Minister of Karamoja.
Yeah, so the corruption, I think the president knows that. They will just get more money. Now, the only person that can fight corruption, it needs to be coming from another level, at NRM level. You can't have an insider. President Museveni cannot fight corruption because it's because of corruption that his government is in power. Is in power. Corruption is no longer a problem. It is now a political tool that you use to handle politics and manifest and consolidate yourself everywhere. Therefore, the moment the president declares war on corruption, we are beginning to see the end of the NRM regime. So don't expect that. Now you need an insider that can overturn issues. The president can't do it anymore. 40 years, he's an aged person, you can't do that. You need a Magufuli, but a Magufuli that has been within the system. Because someone that comes from within the system, they know the system has been operating and they know the thieves. So you need to get a Magufuli from the NRM party, and I think they are trying to create some Magufuli within the NRM party. I'll tell you. No, I will tell you after this.
After your submission.
Yes. So you need to have a Magufuli within the NRM party that will come and change, So with service delivery, in what the president says, why Ugandans go to Dubai, there is a little bit of some truth. Just because there are some conversations we don't have to have as Ugandans, but there is some kind of sense in that. However, we so much say that all the leadership, all the responsibilities of shaping the direction of the country have been entrusted by the government. But the government doesn't take away our individual responsibilities, right? And who are the people that are so much moving to Dubai, like the president said? They're the young people, right? But from the conversation and from the entire State of the Nation address, we didn't see any conversation that directly impacts on the young people. I didn't see any point. I didn't see any policy, right? Now, the policies that the president was popularizing, the parish development model, they are not specific. They are for all Ugandans, right? You have almost 17 million Ugandans who are going to schools. Now, the president does not talk about how schools are going to transform the lives of people. You know what he's saying? He's telling us that whoever wants to make it successfully in this country, you have to be a model farmer or you have to participate in the parish development model. Yes. But there are students that are studying. What are the opportunities in IT? What are the opportunities in social sciences? What are the opportunities in Hoima? What are the opportunities in East African Kudu Pipeline?
Actually, I expected him to talk
What are the opportunities in the 12 industrial zones that were put up? Yes, we're in a position to see some of the ladies, young ladies that we are doing tailoring, I think some industrial park in Mbadi. Those are the opportunities. So when the president is addressing the issue of Ugandans going to Dubai, going to a desert, there is a lot of sense by the way in that. There is a lot of sense. We need to check ourselves. But are the opportunities that are being developed for Ugandans available? I mean, are they reachable? I mean, can someone reach out to the opportunities? Yes, we've seen all these policies, all these wonderful programs that can be in position to change the economic trajectory of Uganda. But do Ugandans have access to them? And how do they get access to them? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, so the president has also come up with what called skilling centers. Skilling centers, there are many in different regions, but Ugandans have access to them. And the biggest challenge that the president has to help us, because this cannot be done at individual level, is market. Now that we're pushing the parish development model, and the Ugandans are going to produce a lot of commodities, Ugandans are going to produce a lot on market. Where's the market? Because as we speak, Kalere, things are rotting. Nakasero, things are rotting. Or Ugandans are flooding all these markets with a lot of produce. So why don't we have a discussion with China, most especially when they took off all the taxes that they were levying, all the tariffs that they were levying on the commodities that were coming from Uganda? Why should we beg the European Union members, for facilitation, industrialization, yet we have access to the Chinese? Why don't we have better bilateral discussions with the Chinese to help them feed the 1.4 billion people that they have? Now that we are pushing Ugandans into the parish development model, what are we doing to help them have access to the market? By the way, you don't even have to push Ugandans into farming. Just get them the market. Just get them the market. Because at the end of the day, this is not a socialist state. Uganda is a mixed kind of economy. But the point is, let Ugandans know that there is market here. Ugandans will produce the commodities. Otherwise, you don't have to do everything for each and every Ugandan. No, just show them that we have market in China. Ugandans can go as far as Iceland. There was some Ugandan that was doing a video, and it's in Iceland. I'm like, man, how did you get there? Ugandans are everywhere on this globe, right? So what you have to do, what the leadership has to do, let us ensure that we show Ugandans where money is. Ugandans go to the gardens. Most of the Ugandans, we are here to but tell us that there is a market in Gwanzu, there is a market in Juba. I'll give an example. How many Ugandans made money in Juba?
Many.
Actually, you know why?
I had friends of mine that would take eggs to Kenya, to Juba. Besides going to Juba, they would take very many things that were being done in Uganda, and it was a very good market for our products that are being. The sweet potatoes that came from Kabale, they were transported to Juba. But of late, things are not okay.
No, the government is fake. The government is fake. The government is almost bankrupt because of the war that's happening between Dagara and Burhan. But I was just trying to show you that if Ugandans were in a position to make a lot of money in South Sudan, because Ugandans can get to know that there's market. By the way, why Ugandans are moving to all those countries, Manya, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, it's because there is market for their services, right? Now, we should be in position to come up with an alternative, just like how we have South Sudan. And an alternative was Congo, and you close the border. That's why I was filming here. With all these problems that you have, and then you close the border with Congo just because you've got 7 cases of Ebola in your country, that was very, very unthought of. I mean, very unheard of. You don't do things just like that. So if Ugandans get to know that there are opportunities in China and they can be in a position to supply their produce that is going to be produced by the parish development model and the farming and everything. Ugandans will engage in that. Otherwise, the president has done a little bit of teaching, which is okay. But there are things that we can do at personal level. Individually, I can go and dig. But as an individual, I cannot get market in Nigeria. It's a little bit hard. I am not Dangote.
Oh, by the way, of late I saw we now take we take milk to Ghana. Yes.
Yeah, those are the opportunities that the government has to get in, and the person who does that is the prime minister. That's the role of the prime minister. They should be in a position to look for businesses
because it's the lead of business government.
Lead of that's what they have to do. They have to be on the jets. They have to be on the planes each and every time. They have to be in Sri Lanka. They have to be in Cambodia. They have to know exactly now that the market that we are having in South Sudan is closed. Where do we go? Because Ugandans were making billions and billions of money from South Sudan. Now, what is the alternative? The alternative is not Kampala, because Kampala is very fake, with so many Indians and so many fake Chinese as well. Yes. Ugandans are competing with the fake Indians and the fake Chinese, right? So the economy is very small, and there is a lot of congestion with Indians and Chinese who are not even paying taxes. You're suffocating the economy, right? So that's why Ugandans run away, because they cannot compete with the Chinese. The Chinese have direct control or connection with the suppliers. So the point should be, yes, the president is addressing a very serious issue about Ugandans going and struggling. No one would like to go, by the way. In a real sense, no Ugandan would like to go and struggle in Saudi Arabia. True. Those people see black people as animals. They don't even like us. But the level, what makes someone to go and do whatever they get to do in those countries is because they don't have an alternative, right? Now that South Sudan is closed, we no longer have that so much debate that we used to have like 15 years ago. What is the alternative? Okay. So, and we aren't asking anyone, we're asking the president. What is the alternative? What is the NLM plan as far as that is concerned? So what is the alternative? Now, Mzee is able to Lagewa. So that's why the alternative is Dubai. That's why the alternative is Qatar. So that's why I was fuming when they said that we were closing the border because of 7 cases of Ebola. No, that's not justified enough to ensure that Uganda struggle at that level. So yes, the president has to give people hope. As I conclude, the president has to give people hope. We have to see that this is a new Museveni. We have to feel him. We have to be like, yes, just like how everyone was like, Amongo Bamukute, a little bit of the corrupt officers, I think they were waiting their pants because of what happened to Among. Ugandans need to feel that this is a new leadership. Ntono Muzeyi mupya tumuwulire. Naye baba. Muzeyi bawulira mukadde ndowooza. Gwe Muzeyi omuwulira nga mupya oba owulira oli yennyini?
In my opinion, I don't see anything. I will not lie to you.
So you agree to what Mbabazi said?
What did he say?
You want change or you want more of the same?
We should go with what is on ground. Let's go in for a short commercial break. We are coming back with more stories. We look on to Samia Suluhu since she is on a 3-day visit to Russia, and we saw she was given a presidential treat by the Russian government, or the Russian president, that is Putin. She went to Russia, that was yesterday, or she started her visit yesterday, and we saw her visiting different places within Russia. We are coming back with more stories. Don't touch that dial. Yes. Commercial break. You are still watching A New Day, and for those that have just joined us, we are talking about stories being that it is a Friday. We talk about stories that made headlines all over this week. We've talked about the presidential address that happened yesterday. He mentioned quite a number of issues that are important for the nation. He tackled corruption. He tackled industrialization. He also emphasized people to engage into government programs such as PDM, and emphasized the 12th Parliament to make sure that government programs reach those that are reach people in order to benefit and to fight unemployment all over the Republic of Uganda. Before we went in for the short commercial break, I mentioned about the president of Tanzania, that is Samia Suluhu. She is on a 3-day visit in Russia, where we saw she was welcomed by His Excellency Putin in Russia. And we expect very many things, but majorly we talked about this very story yesterday, and I asked Doctor, is it because Tanzania would wish to join the BRICS as an organization? That's why we are seeing such visits that are happening of late. And besides that, we saw such visits happening where we saw the Russian president visiting China, and of late, Doctor mentioned in his submission a couple of days back that the two countries are trying to build up something, a body that will hold different countries that have been neglected by the so-called Western countries, and also the United States of America, being that they are seeing potential onto the African continent, and they're finding ways onto how to strategize and be firm onto ground within the African continent. I asked the doctor a question, is it true that China and Russia are the problems of Africa? If they are, why are we witnessing different African leaders going to China and Russia? Doctor, what's the reason behind this, the Tanzanian president visiting Russia?
Many, but of course the relationship between Tanzania and Russia is very historical. Their friendship is very historical, most especially with the president. Putin, even before becoming a president, he used to step in Tanzania. That was when he was still a KGB agent. Yes. There are so many pictures that show the African leaders he was with. I will not mention some of the names because you'll be shocked.
No, not be shocked, but
Putin was here. Putin was here even before, because he became a president in 1999. Yes. But before that, he was a mayor in St. Petersburg, and so many other positions he held. But as a KGB agent, he was very operative in Tanzania. So Tanzania is home. Tanzania is home to Vladimir Putin, just because Samia Suluhu has been the first president of Tanzania to visit Russia. It's very surprising. President Museveni has visited Russia several times. We've seen Sergei Lavrov, Samardev, the ambassador of Russia, here coming in, and the president last time, like we said yesterday, he visited with his son, Ajenomhozi Kainerugaba. Now, the relationship between Russia and Uganda has been a little bit very formidable. But in the 80s, the relationship between Russia and Tanzania was the most powerful. It was the most powerful. Why? Because Tanzania was the headquarters of the Cold War within the East African region. Most of the African countries that were dominated by Western powers, they sought refuge, or most of the freedom fighters that were fighting for the independence of different African countries, they had to seek for asylum in Tanganyika or in Tanzania. That was under the leadership of Julius Kambarage Mwalimu Nyerere. Some of them were the members of the ZANU-PF, the Zimbabwe Africa National Union, under the leadership of Mnangagwa, the current president. That one. The Mnangagwa was in Tanzania. We talk about Robert Mugabe. They had headquarters in Tanzania and Uganda. Uganda, they were staying in Machindi, in so many places there in Machindi, and most of the plans were done here. The other country that was so instrumental in having bases in Tanzania, of course, the bases in Tanzania were not there because Tanzania was the most powerful. They were there because Russia was fighting the capitalist powers that were having control over East African countries or African countries. So they didn't choose to use any country. They chose to use Tanzania. Some of the greatest fighters that has fought against colonial rule on the African continent was Che Guevara. Che Guevara was a gentleman who was born in Venezuela, but of course he was born in Argentina, but crossed and became almost a Cuban citizen. Okay. Those are some of the people that first came in Tanzania in the 60s. That was the time of the Katanga secession, the conflict in Congo, which led to the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. So Tanzania is that historical. It is that historical, and Russia has always been the magnet that has been pushing all that. And Putin, as a KGB agent, was in the know. He knows exactly. So I was telling you about some of the organizations that Russia was coordinating in a way of liberating African countries, but within Tanzania or using Tanzania as their base. We can talk about the ZANU-PF, that is Zimbabwe. We can talk about the African National Congress. When Nelson Mandela declared what you call the Mokoto Wasiziwe, he went on the wanted list of the CIA. He became one of the wanted personalities on the CIA list. Now, he couldn't operate more in South Africa. So that's why he had to come and establish his headquarters in Tanzania. And then we've been talking about Nandi Netumbo Ndaitwah, the current president of Namibia, as they were fighting with the husband in Ndaitwah, because the husband is in Ndaitwah, is the army commander in Namibia, as they were fighting using what called the SWAPO, the Southwest African People's Organization, which led to the independence of Namibia in 1990. Their headquarters were in Tanzania, and the country that was coordinating all of them was Russia. Now, we didn't see Benjamin Mkapa going to Russia. We didn't see Hassan Mwinyi going to Russia. We didn't see Jakaya Kikwete going to Russia. We didn't even see Magufuli going to Russia. You understand? Yes. So why this time now? Why is Samia Suluhu moving to Russia? She's moving to Russia because the relationship with the Western powers is fading. Now that's why, if you look at the mineral resources that now Tanzania has, they are mined and they are being taken over by the Russian companies. One of the biggest companies that is dealing in uranium production in Tanzania is what called the Rosatom. Rosatom, that's a Russian company. The FESCO is a Russian company. The Kamaz, all these are companies that are dealing either in logistics, in shipping of businesses. That means they want to control the Indian Ocean. Because at the end of the day, if Western powers, America, France, and Britain, they are using more of Kenya to control the Indian Ocean, Russia also needs a country that they can use to control the Indian Ocean, because that is still the East African coastline, right? If you want to deal with Uganda, if you want to deal with the Congo, these are inlands. They are within the interior of Africa, East Africa rather. So you need a country that has a coastline such that you can have access to the sea. You can have access to what's called the coastline. So that's why when Kenya is being taken up by Americans and all that, the people of Russia or the Russian Republic would also want to have a little bit of some control around that area. And the only country that can give it to you is Tanzania. Yes. So definitely it is a relationship of control. But like we've said, some of the Canadian companies that were involved in dealing with mineral production in Tanzania, they were swept away, they were chased away. Now all companies that are dealing in mineral production and everything right now in Tanzania, they are being given to Russia. So like what I've said, it is the Kamaz, that's the Russian company. It is the Rosatom, that's a Russian company. It's the FESCO, that's a Russian company. All these are Russian companies that are getting involved to ensure that there is serious business that is done within their own states and Tanzania. So basically that's what it means. It is a very serious issue that is making Samia Suluhu also get into involvement such that she can have a little bit of a serious relationship with the country. So she's just renewing. It is just a renewed relationship. This relationship has been there. Most instrumental that Tanzania was the headquarter of the Soviet Union. Yes. Now, why there's so many leaders like Mwinyi, like Jakaya Kikwete, like Mkapa didn't so much get involved? It's because the Soviet Union had collapsed. Yes. Because the Soviet Union collapses officially in 1989. Now, there's that specific work. I like that. I like how Putin receives these people. I like it. No, there's that distance. I don't know if the producer has that video. There's that distance that works. It's almost like 5 minutes walk. You know, when the visa is coming from the other side and then the host Putin is coming from the other side. It's a very long distance. Okay. You know, it is a show of power. That one, yes. Watch that one. Yeah. I like the Russian architecture. I like the Russian architecture. There's that distance that they walk, you know. Putin walks.
How is that house called? Is it called the State House as also?
No, it's called the Kremlin. It is one of the halls in the Kremlin. Kremlin, just like you say White House. Yes. Yeah. For them, they call it Kremlin. But of course, there are so many halls. There are so many halls where these conferences are held. That's a very powerful gesture. I like it. Now, I just like how Putin works with you know how Museveni does this car? You know, a little bit of that. Yes. But the point is about the relationship that you're trying to define here. Samia Suluhu is reviving. Like I've said, the last 4 Tanzanian presidents did not move to Russia because the Soviet Union had a little bit collapsed. We so much expected Magufuli to do it. Maybe he would have done it in his second term, but he didn't come back for the second term, you know. So we are looking at, that is Sergei Lavrov, you know, the gentleman with glasses.
Yes.
That is Sergei Lavrov. He has been here several times in Uganda. So it is because of that. It's because of the uranium.
Are we saying this because, sorry for the interjection, but Putin was able to congratulate Sir Hassan Suluhu after being re-elected with 98% of votes within Tanzania. And he mentioned one of the key factors to why she is in Russia, mining, the mining sector. They talked about the science and technology, onto how they can cooperate between, they can put, they can have understandings onto the innovation of science and technology between the two nations. But are we seeing this after Suhuru being denied access to other different countries, such as we saw the restriction that were put on the sanctions that were put on her by the US government and the UK after the election being concluded, saying they violated the lives of people within Tanzania. So is he trying to channel going to somewhere else, being that she has no access to America and also the European countries?
No, she has access. You know, when European countries come out and say that we're putting sanctions on your government, they don't mean anything. So long as they can still come for your minerals, you have them. You know, so long as
that's why she took the deals of mining and so on.
Yes, on the Russians. But even before the elections and the violence that occurred last year in October, the relationship had already shifted. So, like I've always been telling you here, that Magufuli came up and said, our minerals, our terms, our sovereignty. Now that was a very, very serious shift. That for so long, the mineral deals were so much taken up by the Western powers, Germany, Britain, USA, Japan, and Canada. Now when Magufuli comes around, it's like, no, we need to redefine this because they are our minerals, this is our country, and it is our independence. In other words, we should define the kind of direction that we would like to take. Now that is something that made him a very serious target. Because when you ever threaten global powers or globalists, most especially when it comes to the minerals, Tanzania has one of the most expensive minerals, which is diamonds. The diamonds of Tanzania are very rare. They have black diamonds, those ones that they use in curing chemicals. I mean, in coming up with chemicals or isotopes that so much help in healing cancer, right? Tanzania has uranium, and Russia is a uranium power, right? So that's why I've talked about the Russian companies that are coming. These are multi-billion companies. But just like they are in China, most of these companies in Russia, they are not individual owned. They are not individual owned. In Russia and China, state companies are state owned. So when you see the coming of the Kamaz, when you see the coming of the Razitom, when you see the coming of the FESCO, all these are companies that are dealing, number one, in minerals, most especially uranium production or uranium enrichment.
Yes.
And the two, they are also coming up with what you call the shipping, what you call the hubs. So that's why I was saying that if Kenya has been strategically taken up by France, like you saw how little Napoleon Macron was taking over, you know, in Nairobi, right? Yes. So the Russians will also have to come and take over Tanzania because you don't have to lose the entire East African coast. Now, the entire East African coast starts from Djibouti. Now, Djibouti is almost taken up by Saudi Arabia, by America, by China, by Turkey. And then you come to Somalia. It's almost the same case. Mogadishu and all those areas, Turkey has the biggest headquarters, the biggest embassy within that Horn of Africa, and their embassy is in Somalia. You know, we've seen so many countries coming in. So Russia is there, but not so formidable. So Russia would like to have Tanzania as their base. As their base. And Samia Suluhu is opening the door. She has opened the door, which I think is a very good alternative to the Tanzanians, because Tanzania is also not known for being a democratic kind of state. They are very, very conservative. They are choosing to take an approach that the Chinese took in the early 60s. You know, you don't open your country for each and every person to say whatever they want to say. It's more of a conservative society. That is as per the foundations of the Chama cha Mapinduzi. So that's the foundation of, you know, this very country. So you don't have to let it very open. So Samia Suluhu, the fact that she's a little bit dented by what happened last year in October, she also has to look for an alternative. Yes. And of course, the Russians are hungry too. They are also hungry. So, and of course, when it comes to getting involved in domestic affairs, you don't expect Putin to tell you about democracy. No, because democracy is not business in Russia, nor that it is in China. So for them, what they want to talk about, they want to have the numbers. They want to have the numbers, they want to have the minerals. And we believe, by the way, one of the fastest growing economies within the East African region is Tanzania. Just because the Western powers want so much push Kenya because it's theirs, but Tanzania is moving very
fast when you talk about development.
Now, they are very strict.
And actually, being that also of late we don't get that information from Tanzania as we get information from Kenya.
Yeah.
It's a bit closed to outside, media companies that the exposure, giving out information, development sectors, and so on and so forth. They are limited to their information to the public.
That's how a country should be. How many dead bodies have you seen in Israel?
I've never seen.
But you don't see their dead bodies. There's like defense forces, IDF forces are being killed, but you don't see any story about it. So the country has to be protected. The country's image has to be protected. How many dead bodies have you seen in Dubai? Dubai is collapsing. No, Dubai is the entire UAE is collapsing. Why? Because tourism has been affected by the war in Iran. Iran is sending direct warheads into all these cities, and no serious person now would like to go to Dubai. So when you close tourism in Dubai, you don't have anything. So that's why they were in a position to get out of the OPEC. They were like, okay, now that tourism is coming down, let us increase on the amount of oil that we are putting on the world market because tourism money is no longer coming in. So can we sell the mafuta such that we can be in a position to have a substitute on the amount of money that we are getting from tourism. So they wanted to sell more oil, but still they can't sell it. Why? Because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. So it's a little bit of panicky, and I just brought that because I just want you to know that countries are protected, but you don't see that anywhere. All of what they will show you, they will show you Burj Khalifa, they will show you Singing Water, they will show you all those guys that are putting on white councils to ensure that to show that the country is okay, but the country is not okay. So a country's image has to be protected deliberately. It has to be protected deliberately. So the biggest point is that Tanzania has done that. There's that nonsense of saying Simanya what. No, they protected their country, and that's how it should be. Most especially when you have societies that are a little bit very subsistence. The levels of understanding as far as international policies, government operations are concerned, because most of Tanzania is one of the most illiterate countries. Ugandans are more literate than the Tanzanians because of the education exposure. Tanzanians have been studying from here. You go to most of these universities.
Where in Tanzania?
No, here. The Tanzanians are studying from here. They don't even now put on courts.
Doctor, scaling Uganda is coming next. Your last remarks.
What do you mean by last remarks? What do you mean?
Being that we're going in for a weekend.
Yeah, people should take care. I'm very happy that the Ebola nonsense is no longer making rounds. That nonsense is no longer making rounds. People should go back to work. Those that have businesses, most especially with the Congolese that have to come to Chikubo to buy
bitenje.
They have to buy. And I have a friend of mine, he sells sapuli. He's a Catholic.
Rosaries.
Yeah, your rosaries. The Congolese, it's one of the most Catholic states, within the East African region. They come and buy our rosaries. They buy a lot. So I think Ugandans will be very happy. Now the Ebola nonsense is coming down. I like the Congolese. For so many times we've been saying, Abakongo beba. Abakongo bakubi abasawa abali mbachi wali Ebola. Abasawa bateka yo. No, it's very interesting, by the way.
I watched the clip of
that was my best story of the week.
I watched the casket that was empty.
Do you have any Congolese friend?
Yeah.
Who?
Masudi.
Okay.
Yeah. The one that I had stole my money.
So you want to say that Congolese are thieves?
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. No, but I have.
But at least they've, man.
I never taught Congolese. However, it was a family that stayed in. They used to stay in Bunga, and they were going to the US, and they wanted assistance in English, and so I would give them a few tutorials here and there because they were going to the US. But it was a family of a pastor.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were relocating from Uganda to
the US.
Yeah,
that was also one of the programs they used to steal their land. Yeah, they would open a lot of immigration policies specifically to favor the Congolese. They so much went to Australia, Canada, and the US and the UK. You know, they give you citizenship or asylum or whatever you may call it, right? In a way of encouraging them to go away from those areas. But the mineral resources that were in their countries, they're the mineral resources that they use them to sustain. I also had a family of, I don't want to mention the names, but there were like 18 of them. They all went to the US. They are in Tennessee. So, but it was also a program where they would have access to so many of the benefits as refugees, but not knowing that the resources that were sustaining them there were coming from their countries. Yeah.
And that's what we had for you this very morning. Let's meet next week on that. Will be on a Monday, and surely we will give you information that you are supposed to have as a Ugandan. We want to keep you in the know. As our slogan says, that see the difference. We bring you the difference into our programming. After New Day, you're going in for Skilling Uganda. At least we make sure that we equip you with skills that will enable you to get or earn a living as a Ugandan. A blessed day. See you next week on Monday. For God and my country.